That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Official Competition, which is the fifth film directed together by Mariano Cohn and Gastón Duprat. It's who are from Argentina. It's competed in the 2021 Venice Film Festival and is being released courtesy of IFC Films, June 17th, 2022.
They've done 4 other films together?
Yes, and projects separate on their own. Their last film together was 2016's The Distinguished Citizen, which Oscar Martínez, who stars in this film, won Best Actor at Venice for.
Okay, the basic story. It's about a pharmaceutical CEO, this rich old man. He's just turned 80 years old. And he's coming to terms with the fact that all he will have ever amounted to is just being a millionaire. Like, that's all people will know him for. So he decides he wants to bequeath something to the nation, and that thing is a film. So he hires a famous director, played by Penélope Cruz.
Lola Cuevas.
In addition to purchasing the rights to some like Nobel Peace Prize winning book. And this book is about like 2 brothers at odds. So he hires Penelope, and Penelope hires 2 of like the biggest Spanish actors, right?
I think Oscar Martínez is supposed to be from Argentina.
Oh, so just like 2
because they comment on his accent, but yeah.
So 2 big Spanish language actors, Oscar Martínez and Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas is like a blockbuster film guy. He makes movies from Hollywood all around the world. And Oscar Martínez is a theater actor. So they don't respect each other. Antonio doesn't respect Oscar because he's not about that money. And of course, Oscar doesn't respect Antonio because he's not serious about the craft of acting. Mm-hmm. The bulk of the film, because we're told they only have like 9 sessions together to rehearse, but the rehearsals really aren't rehearsals. They're Penelope Cruz's character putting them through these really odd exercises. So it puts them all at odds. But everything culminates with 2 nights before the movie is start to film, they have a big party. Mm-hmm. And Antonio overhears Oscar talking shit about him. Like he's not a good actor, he's a joke, whatever. And Oscar's on the roof of this building they're having the party in.
Drunk.
So Antonio goes up there to confront him. One thing leads to another, and he sort of accidentally pushes Oscar like over the roof, like 3 stories high. So, we presume he's dead. But Antonio doesn't say anything. He just goes on like, oh my gosh, what happened to him? Flash forward 5 months. The film has been made. It's been released. And we see that it's getting a lot of attention. So the crew, the director, Antonio, and the guy who produced it are doing like a press junket talking about it.
At a film festival.
Like at a film festival. And we realize that the film that was made ultimately stars Antonio Banderas in both roles. So they're like twins.
And that film is actually called Rivalry.
And the final scene is, we think Oscar's dead, but the final scene is Oscar in the hospital, because we learned during the press junket that he actually is in a deep, deep coma. Well, this fool wakes up, and the first words out of his mouth are...
Félix Rivero, you son of a bitch, or something. Which is the name of Antonio's character.
The end. I enjoyed this movie well enough. It's about ridiculous people. It feels a little pretentious, like it's intended for people who are involved in filmmaking, or like, it felt a little precise to me.
It is, and some of it's a bit predictable, and for a, parody of filmmaking, it does feel a little bit long at 2 hours. And this is the second time I've seen it. Out of Venice last year, this was the Penelope Cruz performance I did prefer over Broken Embraces, which I know that... Parallel Mothers, which I know is not a popular opinion because she won Best Actress at this film festival for that Almodovar film. But somebody said it, I didn't think of this as I was watching it the first time, but somebody commented at that film festival how she's kind of a caricature of Lucrecia Martel, who is a very notable lesbian Argentinian film director, and I can't get it out of my head. And Penelope Cruz is my favorite in this.
Her hair reminded me of Janet Jackson's Unbreakable era, And then her outfit when she is at this party to start filming, I thought she looked very much like Janet Jackson.
Oh, that was a
Because she's wearing like a black, yeah.
not Velvet Rope era too. Some of that hair.
The color, yes,
Okay,
but the sort of volume of it. But anyway, the hair's a wreck because it's clearly a wig. Her edges are like, what?
Again, I can't get.
But I think it's intended to be kind of like a joke. Her hair.
Yes, but I can't get Lucrecia out of my head. But she also has all of the best lines. She's just withering, but also very strange and awkward because she has this. She starts carrying on a relationship with a woman named Diana, who is the producer's daughter, who's cast as the female lead in the film.
I didn't quite understand that because we get two scenes where the daughter is sort of doing like, because the daughter is younger than Penelope Cruz is supposed to be. So the daughter's doing like TikTok dances, and then we see Penelope sort of mimicking it, like she's trying to be youthful as well.
But she can't quite be.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand the purpose of that.
Just kind of a distraction from the continue, because most of this is set in kind of rehearsal mode, which is why it does take on a bit of. It does tend to feel a little bit tedious in those moments, but I also like the building it's shot in because it's just this like empty mausoleum, this building that the producer Don Humberto Suárez is known for, that's just sitting there not being used, which is such a waste. And he's played by Jose Luis Gómez, who's been in several Almodovar films, including Broken Embraces and The Skin I Live In. But he won Best Actor at Cannes back in 1976 for a film called Pascal Duarte, which I have not seen. He's kind of fun. Oscar Martínez is the nice kind of bitchy, pretentious one. But really, I think Antonio Banderas is quite entertaining as well.
He is. There's a scene where Antonio Banderas and Oscar are walking, like leaving rehearsal, and they're walking by like a big glass window, and there's a woman standing outside, and he's like, "Oh, look at that thing! I bet that's one of like
Lola's
old ugly lesbian friends." And then Oscar's like, "Oh," he's like, "I bet you $1,000," and he goes, "How about 300? Deal, 300." And they go outside, and Oscar's like, "Antonio, I want to introduce you to my wife."
And then she's pretentious as well, but she writes children's short stories, and she has a copy of what her latest book in her bag, and she gives it to Antonio, and Oscar says, "Oh, it only cost you $300." She's what?
To me, this feels like if Christopher Guest wrote a movie in Spanish and was like a pretentious Spanish language Christopher Guest movie that's a little too long, it doesn't have enough jokes in it, but it has that energy, like it's just very on the nose for me.
It sometimes, yes, but if you go with it, there's a really great scene where she tells them to bring their awards. She's also been eavesdropping on them separately, where you can see she's pulling her ideas out of the top of her hat, where she says, "Bring your awards. We're going to do an exercise." And they go to this empty auditorium in this building, and she tapes them together with Saran wrap, because it's all about the death of ego and playing these brothers. And then she
destroys their awards.
What do you call that machine? This mangler, basically.
Yeah, mangler.
And while they're tied together, screaming in agony, including she throws her own. She apparently won Venice and Cannes, which a woman hasn't done yet. Although if Jane Campion had won for Power of the Dog at Venice this year, she would have been that woman. I don't know. I really like that scene. I like when you kind of get a sense of what the film is that they're making, the finale. When they're rehearsing the finale, I liked, because it's this brother who killed his parents in a drunk driving accident, and the younger brother eventually kills him, and they share love interest, an ex-prostitute, and she basically just accepts the other brother who comes in and takes his position, which reminded me of something like The Return of Martin Guerre.
Okay, the scene where she destroys their awards, it was kind of like, because when she asked them to bring their awards to rehearsal, obviously you're like, why the hell? Like, she's going to do something with them. So it was a little predictable. But then after she destroys them, then the next scene is Antonio comes in, and they're rehearsing a scene. She's being kind of harsh on him. So it's Penelope and Oscar watching Antonio do a scene. Penelope's being harsh on him. And then he stops and says, "I'm so sorry. I wasn't going to say anything, but I feel like it's affecting my performance. I have pancreatic cancer. I'm told I have a year left to live. but I'm going to live that year to the fullest, and I'm going to do this project. So, of course, the two, Penelope and Oscar, are devastated. They spend all night feeling guilty. The next day, Antonio comes in late, and he's like, sorry, my girl was giving me problems, whatever. And she's like, well, don't worry about it because of your disease. And he's like, what disease? Oh, bitch, I was lying. Like, I don't have a disease. I was trying to show you I can act. That was very predictable.
Predictable, yeah.
The next scene is Oscar is with Penelope and Antonio, and she's telling him and Oscar's telling Antonio, I really do respect you. What you do is amazing, and clearly you're a master at what you do, and I respect you, and I'm sorry. And then Antonio's like, oh, really? Like, that's such an honor. And he's like, no, I'm just kidding. So
yes, those
that felt tedious.
Those don't work for me because all of those people should be smart enough to know what's going on there. That's why movies about making movies that's not at the heights of something like Bowfinger or even like Bullets Over Broadway, which is kind of what I wanted it to be like, which is about a play and not a film.
What this film needed that the other two films you mentioned have is more. The audience is more involved in the actual movie they're making.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm getting so tired of watching these three ridiculous people. The very first exercise she has them do is we hear her say, oh, is the crane coming? Like a big construction crane. And then she has what looks like this 10,000 or 10-ton rock.
This boulder.
And she wants them to rehearse underneath this boulder suspended above them.
It's a metaphor for the tension of their characters.
And then they're doing it, and I thought that was a decent scene, and then we find out that the boulder is actually cardboard.
But you can hear that crane creaking.
You can hear it creaking, and it was, I thought that was effective, but I just felt like, okay, every time that these three are together, they're going to be on some bullshit, and that got old, because each scene runs a little long, so I wish in those moments, because even referencing the building they're in rehearsing, which does look like an empty museum, it's like there's so much space, like in the visual sense, and then within the story there's a lot of space. So I was getting a little bored. I really wanted to see like actual rehearsal, because the two actors uttering lines doesn't happen that often.
And when it does, those tend to go on a bit too.
Yeah.
But another scene I did like is then they're rehearsing kissing of the Diana character, and her dad, this old producer, shows up, and they all are listening to the sounds because she says this is important, and then she makes both men make out with this young woman, and then she does, and they of course are very amorous and get down on the floor. And
Penelope also has like 100 microphones around, so that it's very ASMR.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting, except that it was one of those like, I couldn't tell the difference between the three of them kissing, because she's like, no, that's not good enough. And I thought it all looks and sounds the same. And then when she does it, well, clearly this bitch is a lesbian, and that's why it played out differently.
Sure, but I like how she uses her sexuality in this, because both men try to make passes at her as well, and she kind of lets them.
Yeah.
There's a really playful scene with Antonio Banderas where she's nicked his face after a ridiculous moment, and she's sitting on his lap, and she
doesn't nick his face. Oscar breaks a chair,
but she's fixing it.
Yeah.
She's putting antiseptic on it, and I love how she looks when she's like trying to nuzzle and kiss her, and she kind of lets him go for it, like a little cross the boundary, and she's like, wait, whoa, what are you doing? And she does that a little bit with Oscar Martínez as well, but I don't know. I think it's smart. It could have been funnier, but overall, I did really enjoy this.
What would you give it?
3 out of 5.
I would give it 3 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.